Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the important political dynamics of the country in light of the upcoming general elections that are due on 8th of February. There is, of course, a lot of political temperature in the atmosphere that has risen in the past few days, especially with regards to the way that new alliances are being formed between different parties, particularly between the PMLN and other parties in provinces such as Sindh, Balochistan and Punjab, and also with reference to what is being said by political parties such as the PPP and PTI, with not just against the PMLN and statements pointing towards a bias or being favorites that are coming from their side targeted towards their former alliances, but also in terms of the current caretaker setup, talking about how there is no impartiality that they're seeing by the caretaker setup and accusing them of siding with one party over the other. Something, of course, the caretaker leadership denies, with the Prime Minister also talking about how his party is not here to take any sides. In fact, the party just wants to ensure that free and fair elections are held and that the people are able to exercise their right to vote. And he also talked about how if they were going to be going ahead with any political party or they had any bias towards anyone, why would they not go ahead with the status of the former Prime Minister and try to change that? He said that they are devoid of any sort of inclination and that they just want the country to move ahead with regards to elections, and no other wish list exists according to other leaders of the caretaker setup as well. And this is important not just in terms of the kind of statements that we've seen coming in from PPP and PTI, but also in terms of what then is going to be the evolving political dynamics of the country with regards to these major political parties, many of which still seem to be hinting towards a lack of a level playing field, with the PPP co-chairman then also talking about expressing his confidence in the ECP and talking about how the Election Commission of Pakistan will be able to move forward with free and fair elections. This coming in from Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, while at the same time he's also had different meetings with different foreign leaders as well, where he has expressed his concerns with regards to what is happening and how one political party may be favored over the other, talking about the lack of a level playing field. So something that, of course, is in contradiction in terms of what he says is the future of the elections of the country and his confidence with the ECP to conduct a free and fair elections. At the same time, of course, we're also hearing major reports coming in terms of parties' decisions, parties' manifestos, and what are the plans of different political parties in terms of running the country, particularly in terms of the economic situation and how they're going to be meeting the very tough measures set by the IMF, not just in terms of the current arrangement with the IMF, but also in terms of how we're going to be dealing with the monetary body after the end of the standby arrangement. We've also seen that the IMF has given another 5-year developmental plan to Pakistan to move ahead with developing more climate resilient policies and moving towards plans that take into account the kind of changes to the climate that Pakistan is susceptible to and the kind of disasters that it has seen previously as well. Again, tough measures for any new government that is coming within the country and taking the country forward. So what is there in terms of the plans that different political parties have, especially in terms of distribution of finances between the center and the provinces? And it's something that we're going to be exploring in our show today. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analysts Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal. We've also been joined online by Mr. Khurram, who's a senior journalist, and Mr. Muneeb, Qadir, who's a political analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Let me start with you, Mr. Muneeb. The current situation, of course, is in an interesting one, and it's developing in different scenarios as to what is going on, especially in light of the upcoming general elections. But a quick look at where the different political parties actually stand, particularly when we talk about the major ones, the PMLN, PPP, and also the PTI, irrespective of whether or not we see the leadership behind bars at the moment. There is, of course, a lot of concern as to how exactly the elections are going to be contested and whether or not there is going to be the off-cited level playing field. What do you think is the current scenario, and how do you see the different political parties and the stances that they seem to be taking at the moment?
So there are two political parties currently, among whom I do see
sense of victimization. I mean, say that they feel victimized, and those are PTI and Pakistan People's Party. They have been complaining that they haven't been given a level playing field, but I don't see the same claims being echoed by PMLN or either, by the newly created IPP. So, what is it about PTI and People's Party that they are complaining about not getting a level playing field? Because outwardly there isn't any obvious sign that the caretaker government is, biased in any way, or they're depriving PTI People's Party particularly from being able to assist PMLN. So where does that stem from? I believe that there are some instances, and those are what these parties are citing in substantiating their claims that they are not getting level playing field. For example, the PTI has been complaining that their workers' convention in Lahore has been threatened to be shut down, and they've been threatened with arrests. But I mean, because that hasn't happened yet, so we're not sure on what grounds they're saying that. But there are reports from among PTI quarters that they are being intimidated and being shut into silence. So one doesn't quite know. But yes, against PTI's Yasmin Rashid and Umar Sarfraz Seema, there is now a new case on regarding attack on the Prime Minister's office and residence in Lahore on 9th May. And so they've been arrested again in yet another case. So all these instances put together, I believe, are leading to this sense of victimization among PTI. But I've already said this a lot of times on our program that PTI is not in the running among mainstream parties, and it is all because of 9th May. It's all because of their street politics, that they
Yeah.
did not, choose to contest their politics in parliament. They resigned en masse when they had the chance to sit in opposition
At the
benches
same time,
in
the
the
rhetoric that
parliament.
we've been hearing coming in from PTR leaders or followers is that irrespective of whatever the situation may be in terms of their leadership, whatever is going on ground, they are still going to emerge successful, and they are going to be giving the entire country a big surprise. And I understand that this can be all talk, but do you think that there is any substance to it?
Absolutely not. Quoting PTI chairman's very famous phrase itself, absolutely not. It's because, it's very speculative and hypothetical when they say that PTI is going to win. How exactly? Because you've lost the legitimacy, your top tier leadership, even your B leadership, they're all behind bars, facing multiple cases, and again, very solid cases, very meritorious cases. So I don't think that PTI quite much stands a chance. Does People's Party do? In a sense, yes, because they do have legitimacy. And I think that Bilawal Bhutto and his campaigns are being very successful, and yet People's Party is complaining that they're not getting a level playing field. I've just heard that, at least it's been reported. Don't know how much truth there is to it. That Mr. Asif Ali Zardari has even signaled to the British ambassador Jane Marriott in his recent meeting that he's afraid that he's not getting a level playing field. But just as you said in your introduction, Mr. Zardari also signified his and indicated his confidence in the ECP of being able
Yeah.
to deliver free and fair elections. So that is a bit contradictory. But on the other hand, PMLN sounds very confident because they, Maryam Aurangzeb has just recently said that what we had been saying years ago, vote ko izzat do, we are living it up. We are actually walking the talk, and any other party and every other party is also welcome to follow the same slogan and to contest us on merits and may the best person win. And then there have also been talks that perhaps PMLN is, looking forward to in their manifesto announced that they want to undo 18th Amendment, again something refuted by Maria Aurangzeb. So what is going to be there in the manifesto? How are narrative wars going to be fought out between parties? Now that is the next phase towards
Yeah.
the 8th February election. Now that remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, of course, an interesting aspect that we're going to explore further as well. Mr. Khurram Shahzad, the situation at the moment, as we understand it, especially in terms of what Mr. Muneeb was referring to, of how different political parties are now coming on the same stance of vote quiz, though that has been there in the past. I would believe that this is something that essentially all political parties have always been in favor of, in terms of giving respect to the vote, of how the power needs to be with the people. There's nobody who's come up and said otherwise, and so I don't understand how fundamentally different the situation currently is in terms of the way that PMLN seems to be emerging victorious. What sort of is there in terms of what is their credit to the current situation? What is their triumph right now? I understand their leadership has returned to the country. But other than that, what really has been that sort of aspect that the PMLN has contributed to the current evolving situation that they're so proud of? Because at the same time, while they're denying being favorites of what is being accused towards them by different political parties such as the PPP, it seems that there is a celebratory stance coming in from the party, the source of which is unclear.
As far as, first of all, thank you very much, Sana, for inviting me on the show once again. As far as this slogan of "Vote Ko Izzat Do" is concerned, it changes with the time. We have seen in Pakistan that almost every political party changes slogans according to time. When they are in power, when they are in government, their slogans are different, and when they are in opposition, their slogans are different. I can recall Mariam Nawaz, the chief organizer of Pakistan Muslim League, saying that we need level playing field months ago when Nawaz Sharif was in London and Imran was yet not in jail. He was outside of jail and he was at his home in Saman Park. Mariam Nawaz used to demand that they should be given level playing field. And then if we go before that, we all know that where this slogan came from: "Vote ko izzat do" and "Mujhe kyun nikala," etc., etc. And at the same time, this PTI used to say when they were in government that we are on the same page, and in the history of Pakistan, nobody was on the same page as they were with the military establishment. And now they are demanding level playing field. Same goes to Pakistan People's Party. They use to different slogans when they are in position, and they opt for different slogans when they are in government. So the priorities and slogans of all our political parties gets changed. As far as the current situation is concerned, it is very much apparent that level playing field is not available to some of the parties. It is very much clear that one party is being given priority on all other parties. It's given preference, and it is being treated really well. And when it comes to Pakistan Tehreek Insaf, which is the leading opposition party, it's true that they are not given the equal field, the level playing field. Their most of their leaders are in jails, and
Right,
most
but
of
Khurram Sahab,
their leaders
I
are.
want to understand the situation a bit more in terms of what is going on, because it seemed that whatever legal process needed to be carried out in terms of the aftermath of May 9th and whatever sort of actions were to be taken were being taken irrespective of Mr. Nawaz Sharif's return in the country. And upon his return, whatever legal scenarios or options were available were utilized by the party. So when people do talk about a preferential treatment, what really is the example of a preferential treatment that is being meted out to him since he returned?
If you recall, when Nawaz Sharif came back to the country, how their procession was organized and how he landed in Islamabad, and he had biometric at Islamabad airport, and then he was flown to Lahore, and he was flown via helicopter to the procession. He landed at the Grand Shahi Qila in Lahore. I don't recall anybody landing at Shahi Qila. I mean, any leader's helicopter landed at that premier place. So, and then we can see that how his cases are being dealt with in the courts. Tomorrow he's appearing again in Islamabad High Court, and I'm sure he will get bail. So there are things which tell us that he is given priority and preferential treatment. So I think things are very much clear. And on the other hand, we see that Pakistan Tehreek Insaf, whose main leadership is behind bars, whose second-tier leadership is being forced to join other parties, and of course they don't know yet they be allowed to contest elections or not. Even some people who defected Pakistan Tehreek Insaf but did not come clearly against the party, they were arrested again. We have an example of Mr. Fawad Chaudhry. He was arrested because he was not going against PTI's politics. He was not giving any statements against PTI and its chairman Imran Khan. So we can see that there is a difference of treatment with different parties.
Khurram Saab, Khurram Sahib, when you talk about preferential treatment, can we say that these, all the things you've been highlighting, of course, he was treated very well when he came back, and of course, that shows that the preference was given to him. But could it be possible that that preference is only given to him knowing his medical history? Of course, we all know that he has platelets issues, and then obviously the way he left the country, he had the on the medical grounds, and of course for 4 years he was getting treatment in Britain, and then once he comes back after 4 years, of course is the aging factor, plus if we look at his platelets, it keeps on dropping, and sudden drop comes in the platelets. So can we say that this is just because of that reason that he's been treated like this?
Raja Sahab, my dear friend, if he is that seriously ill, he should not address public rallies, and he should not be visiting across the country going to win the electables. He must not go to Balochistan and stay there for 2 days to win the sport of electables. He must take rest at home or hospital. So when he is doing active politics, we all know why he is doing this, and we all know how seriously ill he is. But having said that, as I said it earlier, I mean, it goes with all political parties of Pakistan. PTI has been to the same circumstances. If I quote the phrase "Ladla," upon a time, Imran Khan was the best Ladla of the establishment. Nowadays, Nawaz Sharif is, and if things go around, we may see Imran Khan is becoming a Ladla again. So this is history of Pakistan politics, and it happens, and there is nothing new in this.
Right. Faisal, there's also, of course, the aspect when we talk about the PMLN on one side, there's also, of course, the way that we've seen different stances come in from the PPP as well, especially with reference to statements such as being the Ladla that Khurram Saab was referring to. Of course, these accusations have been denied by the PMLN, but at the same time, we also see leadership of the PPP meeting with different leaders, even foreign diplomats, talking about the fact that one party is being preferred over the other, while at the same time expressing confidence with the ECP in conducting free and fair elections. So what really is the current sort of viewpoint and understanding of the PPP at the moment, and what sort of strategy plan do they have in place, and whether or not do they truly believe that the elections are really going to be free and fair, or is it something that they just have to say?
You know, Sana, first of all, I'll talk about the allegations on ECP. This won't be the first time that allegations are being hurled on ECP. I mean, in every
to be fair,
election,
there hasn't been an allegation on the ECP at the moment.
Yeah, but of course, on the media and on social media, of course, everyone is highlighting that. And this won't be the first one. In every election, you'll see that the political parties who are a bit weaker than the other parties, of course, they keep on hurling these kind of slogans in which they say that, oh, they are not being provided with the level playing field. It seems as if complaining about the level playing field, not provided with the level playing field, is a narrative itself for getting into elections. And especially when it comes to People's Party, of course, earlier they were seeing themselves as a party who can rule in the coming elections.
Can I just ask you though, how is talking about not being provided level playing field a way to get into the elections process itself? Doesn't it sort of defeat?
Yeah, it's a narrative itself. Why? Because then, I mean, it sells well in the people.
But then you're still
wherever they are weak,
you're still taking part in the elections, irrespective of their being
exactly
no level playing field. According to you, how's that?
Going to their voter and telling them that, look, we are the victims of whatever is going on. So it's a victim
so you'll win
card.
Despite the
it's a victim
scenario.
card which is being played. And when it comes to People's Party, of course, we know that a few months ago, they've been claiming that they are the ones who are going to get into the premier office of Pakistan in the coming up elections. But suddenly, when they see that the ground they desired in Punjab, they are not provided with. Of course, they kept on working on South Punjab. It did not work. Central Punjab, there are few seats where they can be considered as someone who's contesting very well. But when it comes to winning the elections in the central Punjab or upper Punjab or south Punjab, is really hard for them. So they are not in no way in a position to, of course, form a government in the next coming up elections. And of course, we know that they have been working in the Balochistan province as well since during the 15-month government they have been doing it. But that did not work very well because PMLN went there, and of course they created the alliances, and they are in a very good position to obviously form the alliances and get into elections and get seats from there. So when we see People's Party in this kind of situation, of course the only narrative they are left with, that they want to play the victim card, in which they can claim that the level playing field is not being provided to them, whereas it's not the case. When it comes to their stronghold, I'm talking about Sindh, they are still having the stronghold in the interior Sindh, and of course they just need to work on two major cities of Sindh. I'm talking about Hyderabad, I'm talking about Karachi. They really need to work hard out there, and they have to fight elections in a way that they can bring in good seats from there. That is the only only way they can provide better seats for themselves in the National Assembly. When it comes to obviously Sindh, the Provincial Assembly, I'm pretty much sure that they will be performing really well in province of Sindh, but when it comes to national, they won't be. At the same time, if we talk about
that, you know that.
No, I can presume it.
How?
I can presume it. Looking at their track record and looking at their stronghold, of course, they are very good when it comes to elections, fighting elections in the province of Sindh. They have always been very good. And knowing the fact that GDA, MQM and PMLN, they have joined hands against them, but still I believe that they will be performing really well, because as PMLN is known for having a good strong hold in Punjab when it comes to management services and all of that. They have huge influence when it comes to Punjab.
You're very smart. I thought that my question was regarding the nationwide election. You made it about Sindh.
About Sindh, I made it. And if we look at obviously PTI, to some extent, of course, I would agree with the Khurram Saab. They are claiming it, but at the same time, I mean, they are not giving their lists of candidates so far. I mean, they have to give the candidates list so that it can be apparently looked into who are the candidates who are not having their paper went through well. Plus, if they have any allegations against them, they need to face the trials and all. Why I say this? Because 9th May is an incident nobody can obviously forget and shouldn't be forgotten, and of course it should be probed well, and the people who are involved, of course, they will not be allowed to contest elections, because they are the ones who actually take up a route which is not sustainable for our democratic country.
Right. I'll explore the PTA as well, but I'm still a bit unclear as to what really is the stance of the PPP. And Farrukh, perhaps you can help me there in terms of what really is that the party is currently strategizing, and also the PMLN at the same time. When we talk about forming alliances, it seems that the PMLN seems to be doing well, and while the PPP is on a completely different trajectory, perhaps as the one pointed out by Faisal in terms of playing the victim card. But I'm not really sure if that's what's happening, or if this is something that these parties are really moving towards. In terms of what their ultimate goal is, or how they're trying to seek contesting in elections, do you think that what is currently going on is perhaps just part of a different plan?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to answer all your questions and some more. But before that, I want to actually start with a shout out. You see, emotions are irrational things, and but you have been indulging me here. So I'm going to express one emotion that overcame me today in the morning. When I woke up, my heart was swelling, overwhelming with love for a country that is not Pakistan, and that is Australia. I don't know the reason. I don't know the reason why, but they are beautiful people. I think they are amazing people. And what a country, right? Language, culture, their style, methods, everything is amazing. So I just wanted to say, love you, Australia. Now, let us talk about other matters. So the first thing that I wanted to actually talk about is Pakistan's politics, Sana, is like a sitcom that you might have seen. It is called Good Place, where a part of hell is converted into a paradise, and the inmates are given this impression that they are in heaven, but wrongly so. So they end up torturing each other rather than others torturing them, right?
Yeah.
So Pakistani political parties don't need anyone to torture them. They know how to torture themselves, and at this moment, that is exactly what is happening. There was a time only a few months ago when they were all in power, with the exception of PTI. And now look at them, they are tormenting each other the way you couldn't even have thought that any dictatorship could have, right? Now, regarding People's Party, again, another cultural reference, Sana, it reminds me of something that happened, when Stephen Hawking was alive. Stephen Hawking had this idea of baby, black holes. So he thought that he might not get, or he may get actually Nobel Prize on that. But what he ended up doing, he ended up betting against his own victory. What did it achieve? If he wins the prize, he loses the bet, but he wins the prize. But if he actually loses the prize, he at least gets consolation in terms of winning the bet. So this is what People's Party is doing at this moment. They're betting against their own victory. So what happens? If they succeed, they are going to be over the moon and they are going to say the people's revolution has arrived. But if they fail, of course, something went wrong and there was a ladla and everything was, bent over backwards to placate that person.
So you think that's a good, safe strategy?
It is amazing strategy in a country where nobody loses the election. Remember, on the election day or after the election day, there is one party which emerges victorious. There are other parties which actually say that there has been rigging. So they are never defeated. There's always foul play, right? But then let us also actually, this whole idea of favoritism, let us explore it, expand it as well. And to help me do it, I'm going to use Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation with least variables possible. Now, if you just look at politics under the hood, the elements that PMLN is actually aligning with, for example, GDA, for example, MQM, or for that matter, BAP as well, are these parties, of course, they have been associated with establishment in the past, but that is not the actual story here. The actual story is that they have been going through identity crises of their own. For example, MKM can ally with anybody, but it is very difficult for them to align with People's Party because that is the enemy in residence. The rest of them are enemies in exile, right? So they will certainly want to actually align with PMLN no matter what, because they want to regain mayorship of Karachi and then a number of seats in Karachi as well that they used to have ages ago. Similarly, GDA. GDA is an alliance which has many parties, but it was badly defeated by People's Party during the last election. That's why they ended up, People's Party ended up having Sindh, despite the fact that the entire country had almost gone to PTI, right? So what would they do? They would actually go for any enemy or opponent who is in exile. So enemy of enemy is my friend, right? Now, Balochistan Awami Party. If you remember when the previous government was going out of power, at that time, their term was actually ending. At that time, there was this whisper campaign that BAP is going to go and join People's Party, right? At that time, a segment of that party actually raised concern, and they started meeting PMLN, including the current Prime Minister, right? So at that time, they said, why are we just throwing away leverage when you have leverage, right? And they made a good use of that leverage. And today, of course, they find that People's Party will not have that kind of sway at the center. So they are going with PMLN as well. Now, is it favoritism? I think this is practical politics. When this happens, you can of course say, and then what gave the impression of favoritism regarding PMLN? That Mian Nawaz Sharif comes back to the country and he is not arrested. Is it the first time that is happening in this country? There are so many other people who were facing law. They came back to the country and they actually walked around free.
Yeah.
This is their relationship with courts and with the law. So if you think that the entire superstructure of the state is bending backwards to facilitate one party, I don't think so. There are many other small stories that we are missing because we want to believe in this meta narrative. Now the problem is, why is it that PMLN hasn't been able to shake this impression of Ladla? Because its media strategy has been woeful. It has been losing support from everywhere since day one, and they keep on losing it. Why? For example, 18th Amendment discussion, all of a sudden it is there.
Yeah.
Why would you actually allow such a thing to become a talking point at this time?
Yeah.
It is really harming yourself because Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was renamed because of 18th Amendment. Sindh got a lot of things because of 18th Amendment. So close to elections, you open up this Pandora box suddenly, and that becomes a horrible thing. But regarding overall politics, I think that I wanted Faisal's response earlier because I wanted to know what he thinks, what are the variables he is looking at. In the past, I've worked with certain concerns that which work with focus groups on politics, right? So they have this, they indulge me and they keep on sharing information. So every time Mian Nawaz Sharif speaks, his party's ratings go high. This is what I have seen. Similarly, when Bilawal or Zardari Sahib speak, at that time also the approval goes up. So there is something that is there.
Yeah.
They can capitalize on it. If they want to be victim, remember that boy who cried wolf did not have the support the moment when he needed it.
Yeah, Farrukh,
that's an important aspect.
Farrukh, very quick question.
I thought
this victim
one-sided
card.
question.
Can we say that People's Party is playing this victim card? Just because of one reason, that they want to cash on PTI's voters as well?
I think that People's Party is by far the smartest of the lot, right? Then they have never convinced themselves that there is a permanent enemy like PMLN or PTI have. Right? So they can align with anybody. Of course, MQM has a big problem locally, but even then they have aligned with them in the past as well. So at this moment, I think that they are not playing victim card. All they are looking at is that they are taking a lot of things that are just in the air, Ladla for that matter, and redoubling it. Because I told you at that time also, when previous government went away, that don't lose support of People's Party PMLN because they know how to play these things. They know the narratives and they will double it in a way that it will really come back to haunt you. And this is what is happening.
Right. Mr. Muneeb, the discussion around the 18th Amendment is also important, what we were having earlier, and also add to that what you think in terms of what is happening, especially with regards to the PPP and the PMLN. And I understand that this has been refuted by the PMLN side, but at the same time, while we talk about something that is still a question mark that remains in the minds of so many who've read these reports and have heard the rumors around the plans of reversals or changes within the amendment. The discussion around this is important, not just in terms of what's happening now, but how previously also by the previous regime of PTI it was seen as a problematic issue with reference to the distribution of finances and how a lot of administrative tasks were affected. And I want to know then that given what has been discussed previously or the kind of reports are coming now, even though this has been refuted, do you think that there is still a possibility that this may be on the cards? And whether or not, irrespective it's on the cards by the PMLN or any other party or not, at the same time, do you think that is this aspect of the 18th Amendment something that needs reflection or reevaluation by the leadership, by the parliamentarians to really look at what's going on? Do you see a problem here that needs to be fixed?
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, we can't hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Was the province's share of federal resources, which was set at 57.5% under the 18th Amendment, and the federal government was to spend remaining on debt servicing and development programs, and that has been contentious and that has been controversial. But with PMLN via Maria Moranze putting all those speculations to rest, I don't think that this is going to be sort of the point of contention over which the parties would be contesting their manifestos and their narrative wars in the run-up to the election. Whether this could come up at a later time, well, that could be a possibility. But for now, I think that all those rumors of 18th Amendment being put to an end because of this particular aspect, I think that isn't really contentious at the moment. But I also feel that Pakistan People's Party would, perceive any amendment to or any narrowing down or watering down of 18th Amendment as a personal attack on their politics and their political legacy. And like I've said, People's Party are already feeling as if they are being put in a disadvantageous situation. So they might feel, if 18th Amendment were to come under attack, that their claims of being sidelined are substantiated. But apart from that, these claims that there's one new Ladla and that is Nawaz Sharif, I think that they are insupportable for the reason that just today, it's come to my attention that an accountability court in Islamabad has asked NAB to investigate into and to look into and to record Nawaz Sharif's statement in the Tosha Khana case, which has been opened up against Nawaz Sharif and including People's Parties, Asif Ali Zardari and Yusuf Zaghilani. So what more evidence is there of a level playing field if cases are still being looked into with respect to the leaders of all political parties, be that People's Party or be that PMLN? Now, just because Nawaz Sharif or Shahbaz Sharif have been getting relief in a lot of the cases that were there against him, most recently Shahbaz Sharif got relief in the Ashiana housing scheme case, doesn't automatically connect the dots to the caretaker government. And this suggestion, that the caretaker government is favoring PMLN or opening up avenues for the PMLN have been squarely refuted by PM Kakar. He has said that, for example, Imran Khan had been arrested before the caretaker government even came into power. That had happened already on 5th August. So it's got nothing to do with the sidelining of PTI, has nothing to do with the caretaker government.
Yeah. But Muneeb Sahab, my question still remains with reference to whether you think that the 18th Amendment essentially needs any fixing.
In my personal opinion, no. Because I think that it, the kind of greater devolution that it gave to the provinces, there were a lot of grievances otherwise being under direct, federal rule, under the rule of the federal government, and it sub-centralized a lot of areas which the provinces had wanted to have their own claims upon, gave them greater autonomy. So I actually think that 18th Amendment did better than, worse. It had better effects.
All right. Khurram Sahab, the criticism that's coming from different quarters is also being targeted towards the caretaker setup. And I understand that the caretaker Prime Minister and the leadership have all talked about, since they've come into power, that they are here only for a single purpose, and their objective is just to get elections conducted in a proper manner and then shift the power to the newly elected government. And whatever sort of accusations exist of any partiality, they have refuted it, and they've done it again as well. But I still want to understand, in terms of the way that we've seen the circumstances evolve of different political parties developing their own stances, what do you make of these accusations, and whether or not do you think that they will still hold weightage in light of the upcoming election, despite whatever statements come in from the caretaker setup, and will have an impact to the upcoming elections and the dynamics surrounding it, and even before the conduct of the actual elections, and whether or not the way that we have seen different alliances being formed, such as also those between PMLN and the BAP, will there be any sort of baggage involved in terms of any discussions around what is going on between different political parties and the current caretaker setup? Because I understand that they have an accountability process, they have a responsibility to fulfill, but there are people with certain political baggage or inclinations involved. How does that factor into what's going on?
I think the caretaker government has only to do with the situation is to conduct elections free and fair as the Election Commission of Pakistan asked them. They are being supervised by Election Commission of Pakistan for the process of elections, and rest they have nothing to do with anything because the cases of the political leaders are in courts. The courts need to handle it, and they have to prove themselves innocent in courts, and courts will give verdicts about all the political leaders who are involved in cases. So the caretaker setup has nothing to do with this much, but when we see that the caretaker administration cooperates with one party and doesn't cooperate with the other party, then there are definitely questions. The question arise, and this setup should try to refrain from providing any preferential treatment to any party, and
Right.
they should try to focus only on the conducting of elections.
But I just want to understand the impact that the formation of alliances has on anybody who's part of the caretaker setup. In general, how does this play around into a scenario where there are upcoming elections in the country, while at the same time somebody is looking after the caretaker setup, while at the same time two political parties are forming alliances, of which one of them is part of the caretaker setup?
I mean, if you're talking about the prime minister and a few other people who were previously in the Balochistan Awami Party, and at least prime minister says that he has resigned, but we all know that. BAP is going to make alliance with PMLN, and as the prime minister himself has made it clear in various interviews that he will be doing politics once he leaves this position, and we expect that he will be joining PMLN, and he has already met Miss Maryam Nawaz Sharif before taking charge as a caretaker prime minister. So if your question is directed towards such alliances, then yes, this will impact the setup, and we will. I mean, I can at least I can surely say that many of the caretaker ministers will be part of PMLN in future,
Okay.
and soon after elections they will be taking offices on the behalf of PMLN.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Khurram Shahzad, for joining us, and thank you, Mr. Muneeb Qadir, for joining us and being a part of the debate. But if you wanted to add something about the 18th Amendment.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, Sana, that there is, of course, a lot of emotional baggage when it comes to 18th Amendment. But that doesn't mean that, 18th Amendment is the final word, or it is divine word, and it cannot change. There are certain things which were missed. For example, when this whole idea was being actually incorporated, at that time, there was a special committee, Sana, that kept on actually working on this, but it never actually was debated in the parliament. Okay. Secondly, it did away with concurrent list, right, which was, as promised, had to go after 10 years of, framing of the constitution. It should have gone in 83, but it did not. So that was a good, step. But the biggest problem is power came and stopped at provinces, where capacity was less, collection of taxes was less, or the capacity to collect it wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Actual place where everything happens is the local level. But somehow, because there was so much build-up, it could not actually be taken to that level. So I think that there is need for reform further in this matter. But how do you do it? Instead of talking about it now, I mean, I understand that now their spokesperson has spoken about it and the story should be practically over. But the point is, it came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody was talking about it, and it was somebody from within PMLN. That's what this is happening, right? So what you do is, after you win elections, then you have a grace period, a honeymoon period. You use your charm and that honeymoon period to actually go for such things.
Yeah.
But don't do it now, because everybody is going to be against you.
Right, absolutely.
does
And that's the time to actually make these plans.
Very quickly, does it suggest that maybe Mia Mohammed Nawaz Sharif is looking at the presidential seat now?
How?
18th Amendment gone. Then after that, of course, we
No,
can say
not
that
gone. Come
centralized.
on. They say that they are going to amend it.
They're
Yeah.
looking at that change,
Yeah.
especially with distribution.
Yeah.
But what kind of changes they will be doing? But we'll be
Financial
obviously
distribution,
talking
local
about it in
governments,
future.
But yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
I
There's much to
don't
still
connect the two things.
debate
Yeah.
upon, and we'll be talking about it as the story develops and how political dynamics change to the upcoming elections. But that's all that we have from the show today. Thank you, Farrukh. Thank you, Faisal, for being part of the show. We'll now see you tomorrow.